Welcome, everybody, to the CruitCast. I'm Jason Suchomel. You can see Cole Patterson there. I almost said sitting beside me, but not really. We're about 180 miles apart, but it looks like we're sitting beside each other. But it's been a long time, Cole. We haven't done one of these in a while. And everybody's going to roll their eyes when I say, hey, we're going to start doing these more often. But put it in ink. We're going to do these more often now. We've got a wonderful sponsor we're so happy about, Prime Shrimp. PrimeShrimp.com. It's a New Orleans-based company. They've been peeling shrimp down there since the 1940s. They've got a great product. Cole, you've sampled it. I've sampled it. They got different flavors of shrimp. It's simple. There's no prep. There's no mess. You drop it in some boiling water for about 10 minutes. It's got all the flavors. It's got everything you need. The flavors I'm looking include, they've got a signature season. They've got a French Quarter Alfredo. They've got a garlic herb butter and a Louisiana shrimp boil, excuse me. Cole, what's your favorite? I got to know on the Prime Shrimp, what's your favorite?
I tried the signature one, and it's pretty good. It's really easy to cook as well. Not much time at all. I'm looking forward to. I actually got some, po' boy style bread, so I'm looking forward to trying the Louisiana flavor next. But yeah, I've had that. I've had the garlic herb, I believe it's called, and both are really good. So.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. I'm a big shrimp boil. You put anything in a Cajun boil, and I'm going to eat it, man. So I'm looking forward to trying the Louisiana boil. But listen, guys, PrimeShrimp.com. This week only for Orange Bloods. There's a promo. The promo code is Orange Bloods. 50% off your order this week. So go in, load up, man. Get it all, put it in the freezer. Again, man, there's hardly any prep. There's no cleanup, really. You drop it in there. It's done in 10 minutes, and you've got restaurant quality shrimp to eat. Hey, best part about it, money back guarantee. We're so confident. Prime Shrimp is so confident you're going to like it. You're going to love it. It's a money back guarantee. They will refund it if you don't like it. That's not going to happen. You're going to love it. So everybody go to primeshrimp.com, support our sponsor. We're proud to be partnered up with them for a while. 50% off this week. Cole, we haven't done one of these in a while. Like I said, we're going to start doing these more regularly. We actually got a lot to talk about, man. We're kind of in what normally is a season where it's a little bit slower. Things maybe slow down, but not really. The last week and a half, we've had some fireworks, including where I want to start start this CruitCast is talking about. They had 2 commitments on the night of the spring game. I don't think anybody really saw those commitments coming. I don't think the guys who committed saw them coming, and we'll talk about that. But, late at night on Saturday night, about 9 days ago, we're working the phones, and sure enough, boom, we get one commitment from running back Trey Wisner. Then we get another commitment to cover from Ryan Niblett, the Aldine Eisenhower wide receiver. You went and saw Ryan Niblett, you went and saw Trey Wisner recently. So I'm gonna let you take the floor there and just kind of talk about your perception of Trey Wisner and after getting to talk to Trey in person.
Yeah, like you said, the commitment kind of caught a lot of people off guard. We were expecting it to be somewhat of a slow night. I think I was actually about to leave the house to watch an NBA game with a friend, and then Trey Wisner committed. I had to go and write that up, and then Ryan Niblett shortly after. So it went from a slow night to Orange Bloods. But yeah, and Trey Wisner, he told me he wasn't really expecting to go down there and commit. It wasn't really what he was looking to do. It was more of just to get on campus, enjoy the spring game. He wanted to take some, photo shoot in the jerseys and all of that. And he said just talking, and some of the other guys at Texas kind of sold him. Him and Tashard Choice have a great relationship. Oklahoma and A&M have always been the two, contenders in his recruitment. And he basically told me Texas wasn't really much of a contender at all until they hired Tashard Choice at USC back in December. And that kind of skyrocketed from there, and Texas eventually won out. But him and Tashard Choice have a great relationship. He told me that he talked the decision over with his family, but he told Bijan Robinson that he was committing before he told the coaching staff. So, which I thought was pretty interesting. The player goes, he was at Waco Connolly last 2 years. Now he's at Desoto, one of the bigger programs in the Dallas Metroplex. So he's going to play a lot better competition. He's going to be on a bigger stage, so to speak. But as far as his play style goes, he's going to play a lot of slot this year. They're going to use him out of the backfield as well. he's a guy. He's not a power running back. He runs with power, but he's not a traditional run up the middle kind of guy. He can beat you in space. He can hurt you. Catching the ball, all of that kind of stuff. So Texas is looking to take 2 running backs in this class. His versatility is like really, really impressive. Just watching him in practice, how Desoto's going to use him is going to be really cool to watch. He plays special teams as well. He has experience on defense, so he can do a little bit of everything. But yeah, it was great talking to him. He said Deshaun Troy's won him over, and just seeing Bijan Robinson, how he had the success he's had, kind of won him over, and he didn't really see any point of waiting. He was in Austin, just wanted to get the commitment out there, and Texas still have to recruit him and everything, but he seems pretty happy about his decision.
It's amazing the similarity in these 2 commitments. Okay. I talked to Ryan Niblett shortly after he committed, and he said the same thing. He came up and he was really feeling Texas, didn't know he was going to commit, but he mentioned that he talked to Bijan Robinson. So Bijan had a hand in really pulling these guys in and getting them over the hump. And both, Ryan Niblett, like Trey Wisner, said, hey, I'm probably still going to take some other visits. So Texas is going to have to continue to recruit both of these players almost as if they're uncommitted players. Okay. But I love the addition. They're both speed guys. I mean, Niblett ran, I think last week, a 10-4 something, 10-4 range in the 100 meters. Speed receiver, can work out of the slot. Rivals actually has Wisner as an athlete, and he is going to be a running back for Texas, but 6 foot, 180 pounds. He's, like you said, he's not your traditional pound it between the tackles, 220 pounder, but he could be a tremendous complementary back to a guy like a Reuben Owens, if that's who Texas gets as a second back in this class. But both of these guys, they're kind of fun toys, man, that like an offensive mind like Steve Sarkisian can really work well with. I mean, Sark has a knack for getting his guys in space and getting creative with them. So I think both of these players, in terms of their skill set, really fit what Texas wants to do on offense. I think it'll be a natural transition for him. I talked to Niblett after he committed, and he came up with his mom. He had visited a couple weeks prior to the spring game, and Texas really kind of started to surge after that initial visit. He came up with his mom, and he told me I thought it was pretty interesting. He's at halftime of I call it the orange-white game. It was just a practice, but halftime of that practice, they started touring the facilities, and his mom was just in love. I think Brandon Harris was kind of leading the tour, and his mom was just falling in love with what she saw. And he said he was not so much that he was looking at the facilities, he was watching his mom's reaction to everything she was seeing. She loved it so much. Ryan Niblett said, man, that just sealed the deal for him. So really good pickups for Texas. 2 big offensive weapons. They're their first 2 offensive commitments in the 2023 class. I mean, they've had pretty good success with defensive players, but the offensive stuff has been a little bit slow to get rolling. So these are 2 guys they can certainly build around. Now they need to, obviously they got Arch Manning out there, and they're working on some pretty good offensive linemen, and that's a good transition. I think now the spring football season for Texas is over with. High school players are starting to focus on their own spring season, right? That started last week. I don't expect we're going to see a ton of recruiting fireworks over the next month or so as guys go through their own spring ball. They get ready for May and June official visits. But we have seen, Cole, in the last few days, a few of Texas's top prospects have cut down their list to 4 or 5 schools. So let's just kind of go through those for our viewers to kind of get them up to speed. We'll start off with Connor Stroh, the big, and I say big, I mean really big, mammoth offensive lineman out of Frisco.
It's massive.
Yeah, he is. And let me pull him up. But we've got him. Yeah, and this is pretty accurate because he came to a Rivals camp, 6'7", 345. 6'7", 345.
He's every bit of that.
Yeah, he is, man. I saw him at the UT spring game. I'm going to keep calling it a spring game, even though it was a practice.
Yeah.
Right? And there's a ton of recruits, right, on the field before the game, and tons of former players, and tons of just variety of people on the field, right? How all those people get press pass or get field passes, I don't know. I want to get one for myself, but I was watching from the stands. But when Connor Stroh walks by, him and Cam Williams are like, whoa, who that dude
stick out,
man.
Yeah.
They're huge guys. But, Connor Stroh, Rivals 250 offensive lineman, releases his top 5. I'm looking at my list here. It's Arkansas, Texas, Texas A&M, Florida, and Auburn. And he's already got all 5 of his official visits set for May and June. Thoughts on where Texas stands with Connor Stroh after making that top 5?
I think Texas is obviously they're right in the mix, top 5. He included Florida and Auburn in that top 5. Just from my perspective, I think it's really a 3-team race with Arkansas. But even more so, it's really going to come down to the 2 in-state schools, in my opinion. Texas was actually the first team to offer him back in November. Really developed a great relationship with Kyle Flood since then. The 2 have hit it off. He's been on campus multiple times. Texas has made him a priority in the class, and I think that has really stood out to him. But A&M, they had a legacy factor in their favor. He has a lot of family ties to the school. They actually just offered him at their spring game. But he told me he was kind of expecting it. They just wanted to hold it off until he was on campus again. But yeah, A&M has all the family ties, family connections going in their favor. That was big for him to pick that up. But Texas kind of has those relationships already built over the last few months. He has hit it off with a lot of guys in the Texas program. Like Cole Hudson, he said he lives right down the street from Cole Hudson, another Frisco guy. So there's a lot of things in the Longhorns' favor. It's going to be those 2 schools, and I feel like it's going to be a trend for a lot of the in-state guys. That Texas is really in the mix for. It's going to come down to Texas or Texas A&M. But Stroh, Wakeland probably projects best in the interior, but he's every bit of 345 pounds. So definitely a big get for Texas if they can beat out that family factor.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Both of his parents went to A&M. He has an aunt that went to A&M, and I talked to him at the Rivals camp. And Connor's always just a fun guy to talk to, and he's pretty open, pretty honest. He doesn't play a lot of the games that some guys like to play. But I was talking to him, and I said, hey man, I want to hear your thoughts on this. I said, people always ask me, and this is right after A&M offered. I said, people always assume that you're going to go to A&M because your parents went there. And I said, I've always said on orangebloods.com, Connor, I said, I've always said, I don't get that impression from Connor now when I talk to him. Now, I told him, I said, I'm not saying that he won't wind up at A&M, but it's not the lock that you would normally think. If a guy has both parents that went to A&M, and he was pretty honest, and he just said, hey, yeah, you're absolutely right. He goes, people are overestimating that. And he likes A&M a lot. And he said his parents are perfectly fine if he goes to Texas or anywhere else. He goes, honestly, if anyone would try to influence me to go to A&M, he goes, it'd probably be my aunt more than my parents. He goes, but I'm not listening to her. Texas, you said it, Cole was the first to offer. I think that carries some weight. If I'm handicapping this one, Texas and Texas A&M, and I get it, he's down to 5, right? But I think it's going to be one of those 2 as well. I'm not sure I wouldn't put Texas as the slightest of leaders, which is kind of feels like I'm swimming upstream a little bit, right? When I say that, and then I keep thinking, okay, both of his parents are A&M graduates, right? But I don't know, man. He's really has a good bond with UT. He's been there a lot. He was at the spring game, as I mentioned. He's been there several times. He was at the was it their junior day when you and I saw him, I guess? January or I can't. He's been there so much I can't even keep up. So
end of January before the dead.
Yeah. So we'll see how it plays out. He's got his official visit set up, and I thought it was interesting, and maybe this is a bit of a tell. His last 2 visits are to Texas A&M in Texas. And hey, if you're Texas, that's where you want to be. You want to have the last crack at him, right?
They get the last visit.
They do, and he'll probably decide shortly after those. He wants to decide this summer, so that's going to be a really interesting one to watch. I think he goes to, I believe Auburn is the first one, and it's about 2 weeks out, so it's in late May,
coming up quickly,
or mid-May, I think. So it's coming up quickly. This one will start moving pretty quickly. Let's transition from a big fella to a skill guy, Jaden Greathouse, the wide receiver, kind of hybrid tight end, more of a wide receiver, I think, out of Austin Westlake. He's a guy, if you've followed the Texas high school football scene, you probably know the name Jaden Greathouse. He's performed on the biggest of stages and always seems to be, every time you look up, he's scoring touchdowns in a state championship game, right? Jaden announced his top 5 a couple days ago, or top 4, I believe. Yeah. So it's Notre Dame, Texas, South Carolina, and Oklahoma. Your thoughts on Jaden Greathouse, the wide receiver out of Westlake.
Yeah, like you said, he puts up big numbers all the time. State championship game, I had a chance to be there for that, where he had like 3 touchdowns, nearly 300. Probably the best secondary in the state with Dayton Geyer. They got Ryan Yates and the Bowen brothers, all those kind of guys. So he's a big time player. As far as top 4 goes, I was kind of surprised to see South Carolina in the mix for that. But Texas has always been in the conversation for Greathouse. He was also at that junior day that Connor Stroh was at. Obviously, he's been on campus multiple times, living pretty close to University of Texas. Notre Dame's probably the school to watch there. I think they've done a great job. Really in the whole state of Texas. They got Peyton Bone from Geyer committed. They just got Braylon James, another Austin area guy at wide receiver. But Texas still in the mix there. They're after some big-time receivers in the class. One we'll talk about shortly as well. But Greathouse, he's a great player. He's kind of a hybrid, as you mentioned. Can play receiver, can play tight end. I think he's pretty set on playing wide receiver on the next level. It's going to be Texas made the cut there, but has a slight edge.
He did just visit Notre Dame, and they seem to have really picked up some traction after that visit. Yeah. So, Texas maybe has some ground to make up, but he'll take his official visits, I'm sure. He's a guy that's been on campus a bunch, right? He's from Austin, Westlake, a school that Texas traditionally has success recruiting to some degree or to a large degree. I've talked to Jaden a bunch, man, over the last year, and seriously, every time there's a recruiting event, I don't think he was at the spring game, ironically. I think that's when he might have been at Notre Dame. But every other time Texas has had a recruiting event or a big game where they've had players on campus, he's been there, right? So you're reading those tea leaves, you might think, okay, Texas is a team to beat. But when I talk to Jaden, he's very level-headed about it, kind of matter of fact about, he's very honest that Texas is a very strong player, but I wouldn't read too much into the fact that he's from Austin, the fact that he's been on campus quite a bit. I think he's going to take a pretty level-headed, logical approach to this. And, Notre Dame, like you said, I think Notre Dame has really surged there. I think they did a good job with this most recent visit. So Texas will get him back on campus, certainly at least once. You'd figure probably more than once. So there's still some work to be done, but I think Texas has a good shot there. Like you, Cole, I think that one comes down to Texas or Notre Dame in the end. You mentioned kind of there when you were talking, you mentioned, hey, another receiver, a guy we maybe could have led with, right, in this segment. Everybody likes to talk
bearing
about
the lead.
Yeah, exactly. But hey, just keep everybody online a little bit. But Johntay Cook, the standout receiver from Desoto, he just dropped his top 5. It's going to be a pretty familiar frame, I think, but it's Texas, it's Texas A&M, it's Michigan, it's Florida, and it's Jackson State is the 5th school there. So it's probably going to sound a little bit similar to Connor Stroh, but your thoughts on Johntay Cook and where things stand?
Yeah, South Carolina kind of surprised me with Greathouse. I was surprised that Cook did not include Alabama in his top 5.
I was too, absolutely, yeah.
Because I know Florida's kind of been lurking around. He almost visited there. Michigan, I kind of thought was a big surprise, and then Jackson State. But can't ever count out Deion Sanders, I guess, with the recruit. But yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's really a top 2, and I think the other 3 is kind of for suspense, so to speak. Not to say he's not considering them, but I'd be shocked if he goes anywhere else that's not Texas or Texas A&M. I think that's kind of the 2 schools he's been looking at for a while now. 2 schools that have been battling it out. At one point in his recruitment, you could say Texas was the clear leader, and then A&M made up some ground. A&M could be a leader right now, and kind of switches week to week, month to month, so to speak, with him. Just because both programs have a lot to offer, have made strong pushes with him. But he's been a guy that's been a long-time Texas target. They offered him pretty early. They got in the mix pretty early with him, and huge fan of Sarkisian. That's kind of the big selling point there with Texas. He loves Sark. He loves that offense. He's hit it off with Xavier Worthy, who's been recruiting him as well to join him. They missed out on Evan Stewart last year, but Texas has been selling. They were selling on him playing in that offense with Evan Stewart, all of that. But they also included Arch Manning in that pitch and Ruben Owens in that pitch and Xavier Worthy as well to play all together on the same offense. And, I think if Arch goes to Texas, if Texas is able to win that out, I'd be really shocked if Johntay doesn't follow suit. But if Arch goes elsewhere, I think this really does come down to Texas or Texas A&M, a true 50-50 battle. Texas has the offense that he really likes to play in. He thinks he can have the success that Xavier Worthy had. A lot of things are pulling him in that direction. But A&M, they kind of building a monster down there on the recruiting trail. A lot of guys in the kind of address the skill players in this class, similar to Texas as well. But yeah, kind of like Connor Stroh, I'd be floored if it's not one of the two in-state schools.
If you would have asked me before he released his top 5, I would have said Texas and Texas A&M, and I would have probably put Alabama third. So the fact that Bama didn't even make his top 5. Now listen, Johntay, you said he kind of changes from day to day, so he may still wind up at Alabama on an official visit or something. Who knows?
Yeah,
we'll see.
Not shocked.
Top 5, this top 5 may be fluid, but I think in the end it comes down to, like you said, Texas and Texas A&M. Anything else would be a shock to me. He came in. It was the Texas Relays track meet, and Cole, you and I were out there for Texas Relays, and I saw Johntay. I think it was on Friday or whatever day it was. And he and I were talking. Well, the day before, he had gone over to the UT football facilities. There's a lot of NCAA loopholes. You can't go on the days you're running. So he came in a day early and went over to the UT football facilities and spent a lot of time with the Texas coaches and with Arch Manning, who you mentioned. So that, they were just, as the kids say, hey, chopping it up and just, having a little fun, watching some March Madness. I think, like you, if Texas gets Arch, they get Johntay, right?
Yeah.
And right now, I'm on record as predicting a very kind of called a soft prediction, if you will, but I'm predicting Texas to get Arch. I think Texas is the team to beat. Now, I think Georgia still got to watch out for Georgia a lot, especially after the NFL draft that Georgia just had.
And no kidding.
Compared to what Texas didn't have. But if Texas gets Arch, and if I'm predicting Texas to get Arch, that means I need to predict Texas to get Johntay. So right now I favor Texas in that race, but it's truly, I think, going to be about a 50-50 battle, especially like you said, if Arch doesn't wind up at Texas. But Johntay's a tremendous receiver. You mentioned it, man. The Texas staff has made him arguably, priority number one, maybe as big a priority as anybody on their board, aside from Arch Manning. But he's a major priority for Texas. Yeah,
I think he's kind of similar to Xavier Worthy in the fact that he's an explosive receiver, like game-breaking weapon. I had the chance to see him multiple times last season, and it seemed like every single time he had like a huge touchdown that kind of changed the course of the game. And doing it against top competition. And I think he has him ranked pretty high, but I think he's even better than his current ranking. Pretty high on him, and he's a guy that can come in and have a similar impact as Worthy had as a true freshman. I think it is pretty telling that Texas was the only school he included in his top 5 that's really in the race for Arch Manning as well. So kind of read the tea leaves there a little bit. Like he didn't include Alabama or any other school that's really, firmly in the mix for Arch Manning. I think he's made it clear he wants to play with him, but yeah, I think it's definitely going to come down to one of those two in-state schools in the end.
Yeah, he's ranked number 60 nationally by Rivals.com. And I tell you what, you watched him a lot in the fall. We've both seen him this spring, and like at 7-7 events and stuff. He just has been toying with people. I think he might be a little underrated. And he is a new teammate we need to mention of Trey Wisner, the new Texas commit we talked about at the top of the CruitCast. So, those, I don't think they're super close, not yet, but it can't hurt having Trey Wisner playing at Desoto being committed to Texas. So something to keep an eye on there. So one more guy I want to mention who narrowed his list down, and that's DB Malik Muhammad, one of those South Oak Cliff guys, it's standouts. He is, look at my list here, Florida, Texas A&M, Michigan, Texas, Alabama, and Miami. He was another guy that I talked to at Texas Relays, saw him. Very open-minded. He doesn't tip his hand much. I think obviously Texas is in the mix, right? But I'm thinking of those guys that we've talked about today, I would probably say Malik Muhammad, in my opinion, is the least likely to wind up in Austin. But your thoughts on Malik Muhammad?
Yeah, just like you said, Texas kind of playing from behind there. really talented player. His teammate Javon Thomas committed A&M. He's always been high on A&M, so I think that kind of gives him a slight edge. Alabama, I think it's really going to come down to A&M and Alabama there in his recruitment. He's every bit of his athletics. He's an athletic prospect. I still think Texas is. They're in the mix. They have an outside shot, but I don't think they're really in his top group, so to speak. I think it's A&M or Alabama there. So but they're still in the mix. Anything can happen. Stranger things have occurred on the recruiting trail.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, like you said, he's probably the fourth to talk to that Texas has a shot at.
Bottom line, Texas has to get him in on an official visit. And if he's down to 7, let's see where he takes his officials. I'd be moderately surprised if Texas even gets one of those officials. He kind of insinuated to me that he might use those for more out-of-state programs. So we'll see. If Texas gets him on campus for an official visit, then I'll start taking that one a little more seriously. But they're still in the race, so that's a good development for Texas. So, Cole, I know you've been out and about last week. You're going to be out and about this week. Anywhere you're going to try to go this week to see any spring practices? Got anything lined up?
Still trying to figure all of that out with this schedules and all of that. Some do morning practice, some do out. Might go out to Allen this afternoon. Talk to Zena Umuzulu. I always struggle with his last name, but they got a lot of guys there, a lot of talent there. They actually have a freshman tight end that just got an A&M offer, so they're always pretty loaded. Texas is after a couple of their guys, so there's another place I like to get out to. But I had a chance to go out to Lovejoy last week, Desoto last week. We mentioned Trey Wisner. They also have Mario Buford, who's a top corner that Texas could probably be in the mix for there as well at DeSoto. But Lovejoy, they got a pair of guys at Texas is, recruiting pretty hard. And Kyle Parker and Peyton Pierce, the number 1 inside linebacker in the 2024 class. And both are really high on Texas. Parker, similar to Greathouse, they're in Cook. Texas in the mix for a lot of receivers in the class. Brendan Marion's kind of made Kyle Parker a priority. In the cycle, he's also pretty high in Louisville and Penn State. That's a guy that's been on campus at Texas multiple times. They offered him shortly after Marion was hired. That's a guy to watch if Texas makes a push. I think Kyle Parker could probably end up in the class as well. And then Peyton Pierce, number 1 inside linebacker. He's not practicing. He had some cleanup. State champion wrestler, great linebacker prospect. He told me that Jeff Choate has really hit it off with him. I think Choate's the guy that he spoke the most highly of all the coaches recruiting him. And that includes head coaches. He emphasized to me how great that bond is. Pretty close with Nato here and Zena, both from Allen, the 2 brothers from Allen High School. So that's another thing that Texas has in their favor if they're able to get Pierce and Zena in that class. There's a lot of talent out here that Texas is after in the Dallas area. I think Steve Sarkisian and the staff needs to close on some guys that they're in the mix for, like a Kyle Parker, like a Johntay Cook. So it'll be interesting to see what like you said, people are planning on spring and summer official visits. I think it'll tell us a lot of who goes where.
Yeah. You mentioned Nato Umozulo, I think is how you say that. Oh, close. We're in the ballpark, right? But I actually talked to Nato last night. And it's funny, man. I was teasing Nato. He never answered his phone when he was a recruit, right? Never. Mm-hmm. And I called him last night, and he didn't answer. And I'm like, oh, go figure. He called me back, and I go, Nato. I said, now you want the attention. Now that you're signed, sealed, and delivered. But we had a nice conversation. He will be reporting. Well, yesterday was what, the first. It was 4 weeks from yesterday. So let me do 28 plus 1 is 29. So May 29th, Cole. There we go. May 29th, Nato will be moving down to Austin to officially report. And he's excited, man. He's ready to go. And he said he's coming in there to try to earn a starting spot. So I'll have more on my conversation from Nato in my 321 column on orangebloods.com tonight. So everybody look forward to that. And there'll be a couple other offensive linemen I talked to as well. But so that's our CruitCast, our first one in a while. Maybe our first one, Cole, sadly. Can't be our first one of the year, is it? Surely we did one back in January or something, right?
It might be our first one since January.
Man, okay. Well, it's been a while, but thanks to Prime Shrimp, our new sponsor that Cole and I are very excited about, because we've had it and we've got more in our freezer to get to. So everybody go check out primeshrimp.com. Please do it for us, but do it for yourself, man, and do it now. It's a
win-win.
50% off, man. I mean, what's not to love there? And a money back guarantee. They've got multiple flavors. You can load up on whatever you like. It's easy. It's easy cleanup. It's no prep. It's ready in 10 minutes. Dude, it's perfect for a guy like me who's no ace in the kitchen. You can't screw it up, and it is delicious. It is restaurant quality shrimp. So go check them out. Thanks to Prime Shrimp. It's at primeshrimp.com. 50% off. Promo code. You see it at the top there. Orange Bloods. So go get it, load up on it, and trust me, you'll love it and you'll enjoy it, and you'll be thanking us hopefully for promoting it. So thanks to everybody for watching. Thanks to, of course, to Prime Shrimp, primeshrimp.com, for being our sponsor. Thank you, Cole, for your time, and you and I'll be back. Who knows when, man? We'll just maybe the end of this week, maybe early next week, but we will be
be more consistent regardless.
We will definitely be more consistent, and we'll have a lot to talk about moving forward. So appreciate everybody watching. Everybody have a great rest of your week. Take care.